Anyway, I started blasting. Bah, bah.
Hello, and welcome to the 11th video in 6 days. My name is Darth Microtransaction, and I am here to teach you about gear in Raid Shadow Legends. Let's go ahead and tell you everything you need to know about the fundamentals of gear, what makes a good gear piece, what makes a bad gear piece, and everything in between. The very basic thing that I'm going to need to talk to you about before we go anything into gear, and if you already know this, feel free to skip ahead about 30 seconds, but we need to talk about rarity and how the stats work. Now, I'm going to talk about primary stats later. This is purely for secondary stats and upgrading. On your secondary stats, you're going to start with a row based upon what rarity is. If it's common, you get no stats started. If it's uncommon, you get 1, blue 2, and etc. Meaning that on levels 4, 8, and 12, instead of locking the first, second, and third row of stats, it will increase a random stat of the ones that are already available as you get to that level. Meaning if I hit level 4 on this piece of gear, it's going to give me 1 bonus substat of the crit rate, speed, or defense. Whereas if this was going to level 16, I would instead just get 1 new bonus substat since it's an epic, and the 4th row is unlocked at level 16. If this was a common boot, this would have just given me that first row of crit rate unlocked right now. So starting with the most basic concept of gear is that weapon, shields, and your helmet are always going to have the exact same primary stat. Weapons can only have flat attack, helmets can only have flat HP, shields can only have flat defense. When it comes to gloves, they are the only pair of items that can have a primary of crit damage or of crit rate, meaning that if you have an attack-based champion or a damage-dealing type of champion that's really his primary use, most people end up going for critical damage gloves or crit rate gloves if they can't get 100% crit rate. The chest plate is the only one that can have a resistance or accuracy primary. So for PvP, those tend to be very useful, or for people that need to get the debuffs on, sometimes an accuracy chest plate can be used when you don't have enough accuracy otherwise. But the chest plate is mostly used for either HP percentage or defense percentage for a tanky character, or if you have an offense character like the Ethos I'm demonstrating here, an attack percentage type of chest plate. Now, if you have boots, more times than not, people are going to want to put speed as the primary on boots, as boots are the only ones that can have the speed primary. But you can also put things like attack percentage, HP percentage, defense percentage, if you aren't necessarily going for speed. Now, the question begs, okay, so you know what can show up on these pieces of gear. Now, how do you know what you should be building on each character? How do you know if crit damage is going to make him do the most damage? How do you know if attack or defense will? So let's go ahead and walk through that now. For the character example I'm using here currently, it is Ethos. You're going to notice I have a large amount of crit damage and attack on this character. Now, if we look at his skills, you're going to see why. His skills, if you look down here, all moves will say damage based upon and tell you what it's based upon. It is based upon the attack stat for him. This is consistent throughout all of his moves. For this reason, what I built was pure critical damage as well as much attack as I could get as well. That way, his moves, which are based upon attack, will have a higher base damage, and then the multiplier by which it will do more damage, meaning the crit damage percentage, is high as well. So the base as well as the multiplier are high, and that is going to increase the overall total damage I do with this character. I can one-shot somebody with like 150,000 damage with his third move. However, if he had defense or HP gear, for instance, he would not be hitting hard at all. Now, as far as defense and HP percentage go, they're not bad. They are actually very useful for reasons. Let's use a good example here. Let's look for HP percent. Okay, tell you what, let's look at Torment as a good example, okay? Now, if you look at Torment, his skills are based upon defense, meaning if he has more defense, he's going to be doing more damage. Meaning if you have a percentage primary like the chest plate, it is preferable to get the primary of defense percentage. That way he will both do more damage as well as be tankier. If it was an HP percentage, he would only be tankier but not also deal more damage, if that makes sense, since his moves are based upon defense. So when you are building a character, it is often good to look at the character and see what they're based upon, as that is what will more often than not determine how you're going to build the character. Now, another thing to keep in mind, if you look at the total stats, is that you can also do this. I'll show you in the index. This is the best way to look if you don't have the characters yet. If you go to the index and you look at characters here, as you scroll through, it's going to show you their stats when fully maxed out. It'll show you their defense, HP, etc. Now, if you have a defense percentage chest plate, for instance, it's going to give you defense percentage based upon his maxed out base defense once he's maxed out. Meaning if he's 60 and ascended and has 1,000 defense and you have 50%, you're going to get 500 defense. For this reason, keep in mind that if you have characters that have extremely high base health, it is almost always better to put HP on them, or if they have extremely high base defense, it's better to put defense on them. For instance, if we use Mount King as an example, he has 31,000 base health, but only 1,100 base defense. This means with just small amounts of HP bonuses, I was very easily able to get almost 70,000 health without really focusing on those primaries. For that reason, make sure you're checking the skills as well as their base stats before you really start working on the gear. Keep in mind there are some masteries that will increase the stats of the set bonuses, meaning if you have life, offense, defense, the ones listed here, it will increase those subsets by 15%. If you're seeing people with significantly better gear, like you saw my 316% critical damage set, keep in mind like 6 to 10% of that, somewhere I forget the number, I'm not going to do the math, but a portion of that comes from this mastery. So Lore of Steel can increase, although mildly, a portion of your gear stats. Since we're talking about set bonuses, what we're going to do here is very briefly go over the sets just so you can have an idea of what they're due. I'm just going to highlight where they're most useful and move on so that way it's not a long list. Offense is basically useful right in the beginning of the game, as these are easily accessible in events and you get them right in the start. Defense is mainly used on defense percentage-based champions, characters that scale off that. Crit rate is used widely with people for AoE clear, spider, dungeon, speed farming, anything, even PvP, anything that really needs mass damage. Accuracy and speed are both used throughout the game in its entirety. We don't really need to go into detail. They're used everywhere. Lifesteal, kind of same deal. Lifesteal is sort of the training wheels, is what some people refer to it as, of the game. It helps keep you alive as you're going through waves, as you're learning the game, and Lifesteal is pretty much the first thing you want to put on your best character right in the beginning. Destroy removes people's HP, but their max HP, but it really doesn't have a huge use unless it's like a grinder comp in PvP, and currently in the high arena that's not currently used. Damage increases as HP decreases. This can be interesting on people with unkillable. I don't know, Black Knight comes to mind. Reflex, this is good on people that need one of their moves reset, i.e. Battle Khazar could be an example, for instance. Toxic set here. This can be useful on unkillable comps as well as anybody who you need to essentially be able to apply some poisons. You can also put this in like a Paragon set and put Paragon by himself in things like Ultra Nightmare Campaign and let him solo it. Frost set is useful for PvP or for just additional CC. This is a good set on somebody who is basically going to use Provoke, Taunt, things like that. Immunity here is useful mainly in PvP. It allows you to have a block debuffs buff for 2 turns on the start of the game. And then shield set is a really good early game campaign. You put a shield set on people, and every single wave, it will give you a 30% HP shield on everybody. Okay, Stalwart is good for countering AoEs. You can actually use this in the arena as well as I've seen people use it in Clan Boss to kind of make a very tanky team. Crit damage is useful almost everywhere. You see this on a lot of my characters. It's useful for campaign farming. It's useful for all the dungeons, etc. Stun set is useful on a lot of characters, mainly characters that use AoE on basic to place stuns for CC in dungeons. Scartorsus comes to mind as an example of that. Relentless is one of the best pieces of gear in the game, but very hard to get your hands on, especially hard to get your hands on and roll good gear on it. And if you can get this gear, it can be useful as it essentially can just keep looping more and more and more turns. However, keep in mind this piece of gear is best optimized on people like Robar, who also have extra turn benefits, because you can gain an extra turn from your extra turn. So if he goes with a basic attack, gets an extra turn, now this turn has a chance of granting him an extra turn, the leap can go. I've seen this guy do like 10 turns in a row fairly commonly. He can just pop off. Okay, moving on from Relentless to the next set of gear, here we have Savage. Savage can be used sort of as like a crit damage replacement. It just ignores 25% of the enemy's defense. It doesn't have a chance to do that, so it just does it. Moving on to Taunting is good mostly on tanky people if you're trying to get Provoke onto PvE. Cruel is another easily accessible, kind of like the upgraded attack offense set. This is mostly received from clan boss in the early game and can be very useful. I still use them, Royal Guards and things like that. And then we're going to come down to kind of here where they're getting the divine sets. These are essentially the same, just upgraded versions of the other sets we've already gone over. And then Immortal, of course, is kind of like Cruel, where you're going to be getting this from the clan boss significantly and is easy, accessible, legendary, epic, rare gear right in the beginning of the game. And that's mostly what it's used for, as well as people like Miscreated Monster, very tanky HP-based characters. Okay, let's talk about how to decide if you have a good piece of gear. When you drop a new piece of gear and you look at the stats, one of which is obviously the better rarity, the better. You want 5 or 6 star. If it's lower than 5 or 6 star, when we're talking in-game and we're talking you have a 60 level, a fully ascended, skill booked, mastery character. At that point, you're looking for 5 and 6 star legendary or epic gear. Realistically, that is kind of the in-game goal. So when you receive a piece of gear, there's a few things that should be running through your mind. One of which is this piece of gear immediately usable? If it is, congratulations, you've made your decision. If it's not immediately usable, you should be thinking, is it usable in the future? And then you need to be able to establish if it is usable now or in the future. And let me give you some guidelines for that. Now, the secondary stats are going to vary depending on what piece of gear it is. For instance, if it is a speed set, I'm probably looking for a speed secondary. It would stand to reason that if I'm trying to put a speed set on somebody, make them go faster, it would also stand to reason that more speed secondaries would synergize and make them go even faster. So if I'm trying to get somebody fast, I'm looking for speed secondaries, right? Even though I may be looking for speed, that does not mean if I don't pull a speed secondary, this piece is useless. If you look, this one has HP percentage, flat attack, flat defense, and accuracy. Now, for the most part, HP percentage, defense percentage, accuracy, crit damage, crit rate, the percentages tend to be something I am looking for. If it's flat attack, flat defense, almost regardless of the piece of gear, unless the other two substats are very good, I very rarely will use that piece of gear. Regardless of this being a legendary piece of gear, this is a sell for me. It would have to roll accuracy all 4 times in order for me to be interested and have enough substats of one section for me to be interested enough to use the piece of gear, and I would have to go all the way to level 16 in order to get that. Now, let's say maybe you do want that level 16 accuracy. What you can do instead of selling this is, let's go check, okay? Maybe a 40 accuracy piece of speed set is exactly what you need, but you don't really have the silver. I have 300k silver right now. What you can do is you can roll it to 4, you can roll it to 8, see if you get that first or second row. For instance, I got HP percentage, and let's just say in the scenario I was looking for accuracy, this isn't actually a piece of gear I want. So it's like, oh, I didn't get the accuracy row I wanted. I now know this piece of gear is no longer usable for me. I am going to sell it, okay? And you remove that piece of gear directly from your inventory. Ching bada bing, there it is, it's gone. And you move on to the next piece of gear. Now, there are some kind of exceptions to this rule. For instance, there are some sets of gear that just getting itself can be very, very difficult in the beginning of the game. Some examples of this is like getting good crit damage gear is rough in the beginning. Getting good speed sets are rough in the beginning. And anytime you get a set of gear in the beginning that has a good primary, like if you look at this one, this is a 6 star. It's only a blue, but it's a 6 star with an HP percentage. Trying to get the right primaries can be difficult. So if you happen to get a piece of gear and it has the right primary, meaning crit damage on the glove, crit rate on the glove, speed on the boots, maybe resistance or accuracy on a good tanky piece of gear for PvP if that's what you need. If you get the right primary, it might be good just to hang on to it, because eventually you're going to get to the point of the roster where you have a really thick roster, okay? And then you're going to be wanting to do more things, like, let's say faction wars. It's just the example that every idiot throws out when they're like, well, you're doing a faction. So if we use this as an example, eventually you're going to get to the point where it's like, okay, I want to be able to do this. All my very best gear that I've been careful and honed on is all my clan boss team, my PvP team. These guys for my clan boss are borderline useless because I don't have good gear at all. And in that case, that's when you can take your HP percentage primaries. You know, your primaries that are good, but maybe don't have amazing secondaries, throw them on your B squad and fill out with whatever it is you may want to test and do. And then later on, you can just destroy those pieces of gear if you don't want them or sell them, you know, or take them off, put them on the next tier down and upgrade them as you go. So long story short is, if you're looking for good pieces of gear, keep good primaries, keep the correct primaries, and keep and snipe good speed secondaries, crit rate and crit damage, percentage secondaries, flat HP, flat defense, flat attack, all that stuff. Get rid of. You're looking for the percentages, and you're looking for synergistic stats, crit damage on crit damage, speed on speed, HP percentage on HP percentage gear, things like that. Okay, everybody, that's going to wrap it up for a very basic guide of this without making it too long. I hope this video was informative and helpful. I'm trying to do a few more of these informative videos, and I've been cranking out videos a lot. If you guys have noticed, I've done 11 videos in the last 6 days, and I have averaged over the last 9 months 39.2 videos a month. So at this point, I'm very, very working hard for you guys. So I would appreciate a like, comment, or sub if you do like the content. I love you guys very much. I'm going for 25,000 subs is the next go. We're at, I think, 22.5 as of the posting of this. Okay, guys, I love you a lot. Hope it helped, and bye-bye.